What's up, guys? It's Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to PXA Peeks at the early access version of Black Ice, which is a title that constantly makes me think of the somewhat mediocre modern AC/DC song for some reason. I don't know why. Anyway, yeah, so this is a game I actually requested review code for back in friggin' August, and it just kept getting pushed to the side by a bunch of other stuff and time constraints and blah blah blah, and I've been meaning to take a look at it for a long time, and I'm finally getting to it. So this is an early access on Steam right now, and it's a largely one-person title, though there are some other contributors that were made to this. This is made by a gentleman named Garrett Cooper. And he pitches this game as, well, it's a looter shooter. So he actually pitches it himself as, think Borderlands meets Tron. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, yeah, all right, I gotta check this out. And it seems pretty promising. It's got single player, it's got online or local cooperative multiplayer, it's got mod support already, a bunch of stuff built in, and yeah, it looked like a very promising idea. It's also been in early access for a really, really long time. This first came out in early access in July 2014, so it's going on over 3.5 years now that it's been in early access, and he's still very actively working on it, but he admits straight up that this is a project he does in his spare time outside of his day job, so it's, you know, it's taking a little while. He's got the core mechanics of the thing down here, which you're seeing here. I'll go into a little bit of depth about this, but the idea is that, well, like he said, it's Borderlands meets Tron, so it's a game where you do a lot of shooting and a lot of looting, and eventually, when this comes out in full release, it's actually going to have a story tying things together, and additional writing and quests, and more creatures and monsters and things like that. The problem is, right now, is that while it does have its core mechanics down, and they're actually, you know, very, very, very good and very fun, there's not much here. It's a little bit thin right now other than that, and it's something that I feel like people are going to get bored of after a little while. So, as you can see here, this is a full-on loot and shoot game. There are a number of different weapons, there's abilities, there's actual minions you can pick up, and you can enhance a lot of your other abilities like your running and jumping, and you get these items by hacking facilities. You're in kind of like a virtual hacker space here, you know, not unlike, if you've seen goofy movies like Hackers or things like that. A lot of people in the Steam reviews have compared the concept of this game to Snow Crash as well, something like that. So you're actually in a computer space here, and you're hacking these different companies, and your eventual goal is to get to, where is he? That guy right there, Finality Incorporated, which, as you can see there, has a hacking difficulty of 100. So if you see here, if I'm looking around the different buildings, they all have different difficulties, which, of course, means higher challenge and better loot. But hacking that thing is ultimately where you want to go. Now, I've been playing this for a little while now, and anything above 10 in terms of hacking difficulty is a challenge at the moment. Now, you can see here, there's also a lot of low-end ones around here, like this is a 1, and you can see here, you can actually hack multiple buildings simultaneously if you really want to be daring. You don't really get any extra benefit for that, though. That's just for the extra fun. And what happens is you try to hack the buildings and their various security measures, which manifest as these crazy Tron-like creatures come after you. And you have to wait until your tool successfully completes the hack, and then you have to take out all the enemies that remain, all the security measures, and then when that happens, the building goes hollow like that, and you get another piece of loot. And there it is. So you see here there are a number of different things you can pick up here, and they have different tiers, so you hover over them. I mean, it's a very standard looter, shooter, RPG kind of thing, right? You hover over these different things, you can equip anything that you want, and anything that's not quite as good, like, for example, this is better than this secondary machine gun I have here. So you can have a primary and a secondary weapon on your left and right click. You can also have abilities and other weapons on the numbers as well, and you can see here, left shift, I have my run ability, and space can either be a jump ability or, in this case, a jetpack. And as you can see in the bottom left there, I have a certain amount of RAM, which is sort of like your mana or your energy for your different weapons and abilities. And of course, you have health as well. You also level up, you gain different experience, and so this is the sort of perks menu here. So you'll earn a point for every time you level up, and you can put that towards these various different abilities and statistics here that will give you improvements as you go along. So, and as you can see, their talent choices are permanent. I've largely been putting this into both my hack speed and my weapon stuff. I found this other stuff has not really been that big a deal so far, though I suspect if you do that later on in the game, you're gonna need that later in order to do that. There's also stores here, as you can see. You can actually hack the stores, but they all have pretty high difficulty, so I haven't been ballsy enough to try that yet. Maybe we'll do that near the end. But you can go up to one, left click, and they have various things for sale, some of which are better than what you have, some of which are not. But you can take a look through these, you can buy stuff, and the one thing I do like is when you've decided that you have nothing else that you want to sell, you can actually just press one button to sell everything that you have in your inventory. So it's kind of like one of those one button sell all your junk stuff, which I really like. I think that's handy. One thing I really do wish is that this UI would scale better. I'm playing at 1080p here, but as you can see, things are a little tiny, and that doesn't scale up. This is a Unity engine game, so I know that's possible. I do hope he does that later. This is not that big a deal for me, but if you're on a smaller monitor or you're just trying to play at super high resolution, like I'm sure I could run this game in 4K on my 1080 without breaking a sweat, this would be probably impossible to read. So it would be nice if he would do that, because as you can see, there is kind of a lot of it's nice not to have the UI taking up a ton of the screen, but at the same time, it also feels like it's not being potentially utilized as well as it could be. So as you can see here, when you look around, all of these companies have randomly generated names. Some of them are not that interesting, like Nano Fist Dynamics. Like, that's pretty cool. There's some pretty amusing ones here. So, like I said, I really like the idea of this, and I like what he's got going. The problem is that there's no real point to this. You go up to a building, you start your hack, you circle strafe a lot, you shoot at a bunch of things until they're dead, and you pick up some loot, which you only get by completing the buildings, and you sell the loot you don't want, you level up sometimes, and you move on. And you keep moving on until you get to, I'm going to put this into RAM regen, and you keep moving on until you get to Finality Incorporated, and that's that. That's all there is right now. And from what I can tell, by looking at Steam reviews and some other things about this, is that's all this has been for quite a while now. So I understand that in an early access games, particularly when you're a largely one-man show like this guy is, you want to make sure you get your mechanics down. You want to make sure you get your mechanics down rock solid first before you put the narrative in, especially if your narrative can change a lot in development. You kind of want to do that first, and I get that. And he's promising that that's definitely going to be the case by the time this comes out, whenever that is. There is no set release date on this yet, I should mention, by the way. And that's a concern, though, because while I'm having fun with this, it's also just the same thing over and over again. And, for as many problems as I had with the Borderlands games, they had a story and they had a purpose, and you felt like that you were doing something and making a substantive difference in the game world and the narrative, as well as advancing your character. In this, you're just kind of endlessly going through the same motions, and that can only carry you so far, if you ask me. And the thing is, while I understand this is principally about combat and looter shooter mechanics, it's also ultimately a game about hacking, which is a concept I like. And, I like a lot of those games, like Hacknet and things like that are about having you hack and sort of, though it's definitely not portrayed in a realistic fashion, it's about it's about the art of the hack, if you will, and the actual making you feel like you're kind of sort of hacking something for real, even though you're not. This doesn't feel like that at all. This feels like you're hacking something in the way, well, you would see in Tron or in the movie Hackers or something like that, where it really has nothing to do with it. Hacking is just the veneer under which the combat mechanics are layered. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know. As someone who likes the idea of, you know, this sort of fake hacking type thing, let's see some of this stuff we picked up here. As someone who likes the idea of, you know, sort of fake hacking, things like that, I don't know. I kind of, the disc, let's check what that is. I kind of would have liked to have seen something. I'd like to see that fleshed out a little bit more. Maybe, again, maybe he'll do that. I hope so. Because, or I'd at least like to see a little more variance in what you're doing other than, you know, clicking on a building, hitting your hack tools, circle strafing a whole bunch. Okay, this is kind of like a Tron disc. It's you hold it down and it swings out. It doesn't go out very far, though, before it comes back on you. Oh, it's because I'm holding the button. If you just press and let go, it goes for longer. So if you hold it down, you recall it. Okay, that's kind of interesting. But yeah, it's just doing the same thing. You know, not only is there no point to it, there's no variance. It's just, you go to a building, you hit the button, you fight a bunch of things. If the difficulty's up higher, you fight more and tougher things, and you get slightly better loot, and that's it. I mean, that is the core loop of a looter shooter, and that's, you know, it's not bad. He's definitely got that down well, but at least for me, I need to feel like there's a point to what I'm doing, and that I'm accomplishing something and changing the world in some way. All this is really doing here is making a bunch of buildings hollow. You know? It definitely feels like, and you know, obviously you can see here, like, this is a pretty big world, right? Like, there's a lot in here. And actually, I believe if you go into here, or is it here? Yeah, servers remaining 346. So you can actually see there's, you know, you could be at this for quite some time. And you can start different characters and level them differently if you want. And obviously you could take things online. I've unfortunately tried to find online games, and there really aren't any right now. But, you know, this could be a fun game to just sort of sit and chill with a friend and play. But I don't think I'd play much more of this until we got some narrative hooks. And the narrative has got to be interesting. Like, it can't just be, hey, we have this story here that has some writing and some characters in it, but all it is a framing device to tell you, hey, go to a bunch of buildings, press the button, and kill the monsters. Like, that's not enough. There's got to be some more variation in not only what you're doing, but the reasons for it. I don't want the story in this game to just be, hey, Finality Incorporated over there, they're pretty evil, right? You should go hack a bunch of stuff until you get good enough to take down the big bad guy. Like, that's totally uninteresting to me, and that's not a good framing device for this. So there's got to be a narrative, and the gameplay has to evolve into more than just what you've been seeing here for the last 10 minutes. It has to be, there has to be more variance in what you're doing, and it has to give you good motivations for doing it. You know, maybe this being a largely one-man production that's being done on a part-time basis, maybe, I imagine that's probably one of the more complicated elements of designing this, so it's probably going to take him a while. You know, and that's, again, fair enough. You know, but I definitely need to see that. Yeah, also you can see here, I haven't been talking about this, but you see how there's a border after I go into a building? So yeah, you have to stay in that circle to complete the hack. If you step outside for too long, that's what happens there. Whoops. If you step outside too long, that's what happens there, and it basically stops the hack. But there's no penalty for that. Like, that's the other thing, is there's no real ultimate failure state in this. If you die, you respawn, and I don't believe you lose anything, really, other than the hack you were doing. So, you know, that goes back to my point about the narrative and other things like that, is there needs to be some stakes. And right now, it really doesn't feel like there is. Like, in many ways... Wow, that guy took a tumble, didn't he? So that's my minion there that I've been summoning. Who looks pretty rad. I mean, I like the friggin', you know, mirror RGB look of him. I think that's pretty cool. So we're gonna do 2 here, since these are both level 1s. But yeah, it doesn't really feel like it doesn't feel like I'm making any real difference, and it doesn't feel like I have any motivation. So there needs to be that, and there needs to be more variance to what you're doing. You know, if there was a way to incorporate some actual hacking style mini games into this, or something beyond just combat, That would also be pretty cool. Obviously, some more enemy variety would also be good, which he's already said is coming. So that would be good as well. But I really just want to see... I really want the narrative to be good, and I really want there to be more variety to what I'm doing than just this. You know, if you could maybe go in the buildings, or if there was some stuff, you know, variants and quests, like if you're rescuing people, if there's maybe even some escort quests to do, or you need to assemble a crew of characters to help you hack certain structures or something like that. You know, not unlike Hackers, where you need a group of people to work with you to ultimately accomplish what you want. Stuff like that would be kind of cool, and maybe we'll get that. But without any of those, those hooks and basis, there's really, unfortunately, this thing gets very thin after half an hour or so, and I'd really like to see more than that. So in its present state, I mean, it looks cool. That he absolutely nailed the Tron aesthetic. I really, really dig that. Also, yeah, each building here, I haven't been showing this either. You can go up and it actually talks about sort of what the company is that you're hacking. It doesn't really mean much. It looks like it's randomly generated, which the level is as well. But, you know, he's also put in some pretty funny stuff. Like, if you go into the video options here, like, look, there's a CRT mode, like, or 1990 mode, because sure, why not? You know, it looks almost unplayable, but it's cool. And, you know, there's a CRT mode, which this actually I think looks kind of neat, though it probably give you some pretty good motion sickness. You know, he's got the aesthetic down absolutely perfectly. He has colorblind support and things like that too, which is really nice. I like that, but there's just... he's got a good mechanical framework here, but that's all it is. Like, this really feels more like a prototype than a complete experience. So if you're interested in picking this up, I would say it could be fun if you just want a, you know, a casual game to play online with a couple of friends or whatever, just to talk while you shoot stuff. It's definitely good for that. But I see for approximately $15 US, which is what this goes for, it's definitely thin right now. Thin on story, thin on mechanics, and I need to see more to keep me engaged. But as I said, this gentleman is very involved with the community. This game has an official subreddit. You know, he's paying attention to the forums. He is still, even though this has been in early access for probably longer than a lot of games should be, Daisy, he is doing a lot of work to it, and it's clearly not something he's abandoned. But know what you're getting into with this one. It might be a long wait before you get a complete experience, and the stuff that I need out of this, he says is coming, but we don't know to what degree or really what to expect out of it. So it may be something you want to wait on until it's actually out. Or maybe you want to help support this. I love what he's got going here. I think he's got a fantastic base and a great framework here, but that's... I don't know what a dark server is. You know what? Maybe we'll go out on that. Huh. Why not? This didn't even create a border around it. Okay, so this has enemies that you can't see very well. Oh no, it did create a border. You just can't see it because it's a dark server. I get it. Well, let's see if I can make it. But yeah, I really like what he's got going on here. I really hope he can make something cool out of it, because an indie-developed Borderlands-like game that takes place in this sort of cyberpunk world, that just speaks to me. That's that's right up my alley. I love anything that even vaguely resembles cyberpunk, and I love a good looter shooter. So this is something I'm going to continue to be paying attention to, and if you're into those genres, I would recommend that too. Just, yeah. Despite how long it's been in early access, it's still very, very early, so I would definitely know what you are getting into with this. All right, I got it. Sweet. Anyway, yeah, so that is Black Ice, developed by and published by, get this, super duper Garrett Cooper. That's just, that's a fantastic dev name. I love that. This is on the PC on Steam right now. It is a Steam Play game, so it is available on Windows, Mac, and Linux. So you've got some variety there. Yeah, good start, but a little thin, and it's been a long time coming, so just know that. Thanks thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked what you saw here, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. That does help me out a great deal. If you want to watch something else, check out the videos on screen now, and don't forget to follow @PXA Media on Twitter to find out about new stuff first.